and welcome to another edition of Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven, for Thursday, June 4th, 2020. I'm your host, Lewis Bright Raven, 27-year veteran of comics, science fiction, fantasy, and horror, role-playing games, and other entertainment. This week is what's all the fuss, Gus. We're going to talk a little bit about some of our unfortunate times in society. We're going to talk about reviews. We're going to talk about certain things going on in the industry and update people, let people understand what's going on with certain companies. And so before we get any further than that, it's just, like I said, this has been a rough time in recent past 10 to 14 days in America. And with the events of the tragic death of George Floyd, I've had some people come at me privately for supposedly not standing with the Black community. So we're going to address that in the questions and answers. And we'll do some other things. Let's talk about that a little bit during the Q&A sessions to this week. So before we do that, though, I need to, as always, talk about our notice. And this episode of QTR is intended for ages 16 and up. And while some of the content we might feature is kid-friendly, the context of our episodes is to address and educate older teens and adults to inform them of said content, for them to research as consumers in service of their youth. And there's always the possibility of adult language is present on the episode as well, rated TV 16 and up. Now, as I said, I've had some people kind of get a little bit rude to me privately, but we'll try and be as polite about the situation as possible. And we'll go to our Q&A. And the first question was from a Black gentleman, but I'm going to be nice and not call him out by name. And this is a very watered down of his email to me. He asked, "How come you did not participate in the Blackout Tuesday event? Don't you believe in equal justice for all Americans? Hashtag Black Lives Matter," or BLM. Now, first off, on Tuesday, I was out on medical errands with my father, taking him to a doctor's appointment. And when I got home, I was on the internet for about maybe 20 minutes when my Spectrum service went out and was out until pretty much the next morning. So there was no reason for, there was really no way for me to be on there on Facebook or other things, pontificating of that nature. The second thing of that is I've always known about the problems with law enforcement and the brutality condition, not just directed at the Black community, but against other members, other people of color. And so for me, it's not about acknowledging you. I already acknowledge that there's a problem with brutality with police brutality in this country. I've spoken out against it. I've actually been arrested when I was much younger in my life, Ford S sort of thing. So, that doesn't mean I'm dismissing you. It doesn't mean I'm saying that it doesn't happen to you or that it's not a case of severe case or anything, because it is. You're the second most abused ethnic race behind Native Americans. And, as terms of population base, because there's such a higher population base of Blacks, it seems like you're first, but you're second. It doesn't matter whether you're first or second. It doesn't matter what the race of the victim is. The point is that there are victims at all. And so whether I I don't think we need to nitpick nuances. I think we just need to address the problem, and the problem is the bully attitude, the bully culture in America towards one another. Systemic racism. Systemic racism is not racism directed at any one particular race by any other race. It's a culture that when you have racism and you put your own race above and before anybody else's, you are being racist. It doesn't, matter whether you're doing it aggressively or non-aggressively. So, that's what systemic racism is to me. But what happened with George Floyd and some of the more horrific things I've seen since then, today I saw videos of idiot white people doing a faux camera op, pretending that they were the guy leaning on another guy's head that's supposed to be George Floyd, a George Floyd challenge. I like to take each one of those individuals and smack them upside their ribs with a baton, drive them to the ground, slam my knee into their spine to incapacitate them further, which is normal police procedure in those kind of situations, wrench their shoulders out, which is normal thing that they do, put them in the zip tie, and then put all 225 pounds right on their neck. And since they aren't asthmatic like George Floyd, and they don't have a bad heart like George Floyd, they're going to sit there and take it for twice as long as he did, and let's see if you pass out or die. That's how I feel about that. I don't care about this mockery. It's very annoying. But that's all I'm going to say on that. It's wrong to the culture of our society. 42% of America faces some instance of this in their lives. And it's all races. I'm not going to say all lives matter because that's an obvious. Shouldn't need to be said. Black lives matter. Shouldn't need to be said. We should know this. So that's what I got to say to Anonymous about that. Next question. It's from Roger in Denver, Colorado. And he asks, what do you think of people who say they're going to boycott or quit supporting businesses, restaurants, media companies, commentators, etc., who financially supported Trump or have vocally supported Trump in social media? Well, I think they're being foolish. The reason I think they're being foolish is because, okay, there's been some reports about some franchisees or some major people at Wendy's or Pizza Hut or whatever who supposedly donated a couple $100,000 to Trump's presidential campaigns in 2016 or are doing it for the 2020 election. And I see these people going, oh, well, I'm not going to eat there anymore. Okay. Are you going to quit buying Marvel comics because Isaac Perelman or Ron Perelman, whatever, Perelman anyway, and his wife donated $400,000 to Trump in the 2016 election? I mean, you're going to be consistent in your behavior? Are you going to stop buying Disney product because both Bob Iger and Bob Chapra, the two CEOs of Disney, donated money to Trump? Are you going to stop watching the NFL because 11 of the 28 owners donated to Trump? You're going to stop watching the NBA because 8 of those owners donated to Trump? Everybody in every culture, every entertainment culture, every food culture, the rich are going to donate to the rich. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to be consistent and boycott everything, you're welcome to do that. That's your right as an American citizen. But realize that you're basically just going to cut yourself off from society. And that's, it's so, I hate to give you that reality check, but I have to. It's fine if you don't want to support Trump yourself. And it's fine if you don't want to support a person who votes for Trump. That's, I have no problem with that. There's a lot of people who are Trumpians or Trumpsters who I don't like and I don't support either. But I think it's kind of there's a line in the sand where you kind of got to be common sense about it too. Mm-hmm. Next question. Mm-hmm. That's from Joe in Florida. He asks, what do you think about the comic stores and other businesses that were damaged and looted during the riots over the past week? Well, anytime we have these protests, anytime we have a situation where you get a lot of people, even though they're meant to be peaceful, other things, there's always going to be people who are jerks, who are going to try and take advantage of those situations and do things that are inappropriate. And I wish there were a way to identify and catch those people and bring them to justice for their actions. There's no reason to be destructive if all you're doing is, if you're trying to protest peacefully against police brutality, then why would you be destroying things and giving the police cause to take physical action against you? It's kind of common sense. But, like I said, there's a lot of people out there, unfortunately, and I say a lot, I'm not saying a majority of our population, it's just a sizable enough percentage of jerks out there that unfortunately they take advantage of these situations, and we need to, I don't know what we can do to prevent that, or hopefully just try to do better, pay attention to what's going on at those things and try and catch people in the act. That's all I can say, but it's a shame that it's happening. And if it just leads us creators more into a situation where we have to do more donation drives or do other things to try and help the stores, if we can. So, that'll be probably what's next for some of these stores, and some of the creators will try and help the stores. Next question. What do you think Captain America would do in today's America? Anonymous. Oh boy. I don't know. Probably shed a lot of tears. John, good evening. And Ted Davies Artistry, good evening. As well as can be expected in today's trying times, Ted. Where were we? We were with Captain America. What would Cap do in today's society? I don't know. I'm probably not the guy to ask. I'd go ask Chris Evans on his Twitter account or something to ask that. He's Cap, not me. I wish the late Mark Gruenwald were around to answer that question. I don't know. It's a weird situation. Like I said, I think he'd cry for the country. And, I don't know what he would say. I mean, obviously he would stand with blacks. I mean, he's one of his best friends is the Falcon. So obviously he would stand by the black community. I think he would have stood up for a lot of this. I think Cap would have stood up for a lot of stuff before this sort of thing happened. And, um, questioned some of the authority, which he's done in the comics several times in previous generations of our history. In the 60s and 70s, he questioned our culture, our government, and that's what he'd be doing today probably if he actually existed. So. Oh, I guess you had a connection problem or something going on there, Ted. Um, let's see our next question. Miguel Assar asks, if you do classic reviews like you said you might do, are you going to do single issues or trade collections? It might be harder to get the single issues from the past. There's the question. There you go. Answer is both, basically. This week I'll do a single issue and talk about that a little bit because I probably shouldn't do it as single issue, but this happened to be what I picked. I'll try and do it where there's a whole story involved, usually. This week I won't succeed, but I'll try to do it in the future. We're gonna try and do one classic comic a week from now on. Next question. Angela asks, what have you been watching on TV since the pandemic? I mean, a lot of shows are halted in production. Live sports is mostly on hold, etc. Well, they've had a few. The wrestling shows are still on. They're a little bit weird without the crowds. There's, different things here and there. I'm not really into TV that much. And not a whole lot of things I really want to watch. So, I guess, when people are locked at home and they want to find something to do. So I totally understand where she's coming from. I wish I had some advice on what to watch. I mean, I guess some people are watching the new Stargirl, but, I'm kind of indifferent about it. I'm trying to think, and I really don't really watch a whole lot. Most of the time I'm watching YouTube videos, and when I'm watching the YouTube videos, even that's not really watching video as much as putting on music tracks where it's like 60 or 70 music videos or whatever. And I turn the screen off, but leave the music on so I can just listen to the music because it's more effective. I get songs I want to hear more so than radio play. So that's pretty much what I do there. So let's see if we got any more questions. Anonymous asks, if the COVID-19 situation was abated and we could all go back to some semblance of normal again, like being able to go to places without face masks and stuff, what would the first place you'd like to go? What would the first place you'd like to go to? Oh, okay. First place B, okay, type thing. Okay. And he was specifically meaning conventions. First off, I think people should realize that face masks are going to become the new normal in all due likelihood. And you should look to the Japanese culture for the last 10, 20 years at least. At least half of their culture normally wore face masks in public. So I just think it's going to be a continuation of that. And we're just behind the times in America in that respect. Um, but even if there is a point, which would be nice if someday we can get to that. But if we don't and we can't, but if we do, whatever, either way. Um, in terms of conventions, I've been to a lot of them in the U.S. I'd probably want to travel overseas and go to Comiket in Japan, which is the largest comics convention in the world. It's literally 5 times larger than San Diego in terms of people attending. I'd like to go over to Europe and go to the Lucca Comics and Media Festival in Italy. And I can't, I'll probably slaughter the name Angoulême, I think it's called. Um, Let me look that up if I can real quick. That's in France. And I guess. Um, yeah, it's the Angoulême in France. It's the French Comics Festival. And that's, you know, over 200,000 people normally go to that one. And I believe that this is the first time since '74 that they're not having it. Um, I believe, or maybe they already did have it. I don't know. I think it might have been in January because the 2021 system is in January of 2021. So maybe they've already had it. But those are kind of the places I'd like to go see and kind of experience comics culture in other parts of the world and um, see it from a different perspective. I think that might be a worthwhile experience. So that's what I have to say about that particular thing. So I think that's all of our questions. Yes, it is. So if you have questions that you want to ask, you can email them to quothetheravenlbr72@gmail.com. Um, Subject QTR questions. Please indicate whether or not you want your name and locale read on air. Sorry, folks, just had to get something real quick. That's why I kept it there. All righty. Now, I'm not going to get any more politics tonight, or preferably at all. I don't like to talk politics, as most people know. Um, I think I've said what I need to say as far as that, and I hope that all my fellow uh, Americans are using common sense and trying to stay safe out there. Uh, and let's not dismiss anybody's concerns, regardless of whatever, and try to um, do that. Jen Norris says, "For me, I long for the day I can see a movie in a theater again." Yeah, well, that's probably because it's the only time we ever get together anymore. um, that's one reason, and not just me, but all your friends, because I know you go with a lot of friends that are out there, John. But yeah, it's I don't know, it's weird, but yeah, I think it's just longing for a day to just be able to go do anything like a social event, whether it's going to see a movie or going to restaurants or going to concerts or going to a play, since John works in the plays theater that way. musicals and stuff. But yeah, all those things, would be nice. Like I said, we're a little bit backward still in America, still being um, selfish and not really understanding why things are the way they are. Um, but hopefully, Americans will figure it out. We'll see. Okay. Uh, what have we got here? We'll go with some of the cool stuff that's going on. Last week I talked about Alterna and the whole thing about previews and Diamond and stuff. And I don't know where my previews catalog went. I think I have it in another part of the room, unfortunately. But I had mentioned that a lot of books have been listed in the most recent catalog, and that some of the Alterna books were listed as being shipped last week and this week, and they hadn't come because they were not confirmed by Diamond. I did get a response from Peter Simeti at Alterna, and let me quickly pull that up if I can. I don't know if we'll be able to see it or not. But we'll try. There you go. You can see it. That's on my Facebook page. I got a Facebook response from him, and let's see here. And he says, "Hello, Lewis. We are no longer distributing with Diamond, and to our knowledge, there should be no solicits in the new previews catalog from our company. Alterna titles can only be ordered via alternaaccess.com at this point for both readers and retailers. In alternaaccess.com/new releases, you'll find the last books that went through Diamond. And then in alternaaccess.com pre-orders, you'll find the books that are not offered through them and the ones that can be purchased only purchased on our site from April 2020 and onward. So if I have forwarded this to my regular retailer, you might want to let your retailers know, if those of you who live in different areas who might use Alterna, that they have to order it direct from Alterna now. I thought that was the case from what I had heard, but like I said, the most recent previews catalog did have some Alterna books put in the catalog, whether that was just an error or whatever. But or Jeppy just thinking, well, he's not going to succeed doing that, he'll come back. Who knows? But it is what it is. Now, someone else going live, of course. That's what that beep was, if you heard it. Anyway, that pretty much resolves that question as to what's going on with Alterna. And so let's see what else we have here. I guess we can go ahead and go to our reviews. And we'll start with our classic this week. And our classic comic review this week is Amazing Spider-Man 162 from Marvel in 1976. The writer was Len Wein. The penciler was Ross Andrew. The inker was Mike Esposito. The colorist was Glynis Wein. And the genre was superhero adventure. I got this book because I saw it in passing at my local comic shop on Facebook. He had a bunch of back issues, just flipping through them, on the screen. And I said, hey, I haven't got that. And it has Nightcrawler in it, and I'm a Nightcrawler fan. And, I was like, oh, okay. I thought it was a one-shot story. It's actually the second half of a two-part. So anyway, Spider-Man and Nightcrawler of the X-Men are investigating a sniper attack after having confronted each other in the previous issue. They think it's the work of the Punisher, but instead it's the work of the Punisher's nemesis, Jigsaw. And the trio must overcome their differences to stop the murderous villain. Meanwhile, J. Jonah Jameson schemes to find a way to bring Spider-Man down, and Peter and Mary Jane have relationship issues. Recommended for ages 13 and up, and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. And we're going to take a quick look at the artwork. Now, the artwork I'm going to show is actually the computerized Comixology version. I didn't want to try and scan the comic itself. But these are like the first few pages of the story. And of course, I don't think they really changed any of the coloring. It just looks more pronounced because it is on a screen as opposed to the newsprint, which dulls it a bit. But I think Andrew does a nice job on the artwork. I don't know if I like Esposito's inks on it that great, but I think he's a little heavy in spots. But not really knowing what Ross's pencils were like at the time, I can't really say for sure. Whoops, I thought I had another page. I don't. Okay. Story-wise, it was interesting enough because, like I said, it was the second half of a 2-part story. And even though it was a second part, I was able to read the issue without having read the previous issue to know what was going on. Everything was pretty well explained. And I like that point of it because in that respect, it is a standalone issue and you can read it that way. I wish more comics were written like that today, where even though there's a larger story arc, you can read an issue and not feel like you're lost and what am I missing information wise. The scene between MJ and Peter and Flash Thompson, because Peter had left her on a date during a sniper situation to become Spider-Man, and fend off the attacker. She was kind of like, well, I'm going to go date Flash Thompson then, type thing. I'm like, okay, that was, all right, it makes sense in the context and the era of what was going on at the time. I'd forgotten how much of a jerk Jonas. I knew Jonah Jameson was always a jerk, but I forget that there were periods throughout the history of Spider-Man where he actually paid other people to try and create villains and create other people to either injure or maim or kill Spider-Man or publicly humiliate Spider-Man. I remember some, but not like what this was. This is really dark. Why isn't this guy in jail? J. Jonah Jameson should be a villain in jail for trying to manipulate the news. That's what happened probably. But of course, Peter's manipulating the news too, kind of, being the guy who's the photographer who photos himself. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, it was an interesting issue, and a little bit above average book. So 3 out of 5 is a good rating. Our next book is The Art of Plug Volume 1, $49. Oh, by the way, you can get that Amazing Spider-Man 162 on Marvel.com or Comixology as a digital download. I wouldn't try to get the book on a mint condition print version because it's going to cost you about $125 is the going rate. I paid $15, but mine's not anywhere near mint. My copy was probably about a good or very good, maybe a very good, very good to fine, I would say, about conditions all it was. So, I probably wouldn't have gotten it, but I kind of told my retailer I'd go ahead and get it pre-hand. I just didn't want to disappoint the guy, especially in times like these. So I went ahead and got it. And then, like I said, it wasn't a bad investment for entertainment. So, but just be forewarned so that you can decide if you want to buy it in the print. It's going to cost you a pretty penny. You might want to try and get it as a digital download instead. Now, the next book is The Art of Plug, Volume 1, $49, as I said. The publisher is FPG LLC. That's Michael Friedlander Group, edited by Michael Friedlander. Various writer articles and interviews. All the art is by Mike Plug, either by himself or with collaborators. 352 pages. It's an artist historical retrospective book. An amazing overview of the career of the artist Mike Plug, from his comics work to animation to commercial illustration. Talks about his childhood, the background that led him into comics, why he left comics for other markets, etc. Awesome images of original artwork reproduced from historical archives and personal collections alike. The cover that you see here is a painting he did for the Ralph, I believe for the Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings stuff. Let me see what year that was. I can't tell. It says 93, so it might be D&D, but as you can see, I got here. It's a rather thick tome. Good hardcover. Mm-hmm. There you go. Mm-hmm. I have a bookmark in here just for different sake, but these are reprints of some of his pages. And he was doing comics for Hot Rod magazine and motorcycle magazines in the 60s and early 70s. He has a very Jack Davis cartoony caricature type stuff going on there. Mm-hmm. He also worked on Eerie and Vampirella. And there's some of the stuff from Eerie. The Tower of the Demon Dooms and the Brain of Frankenstein. One of his more well-known series was Werewolf by Night for Marvel. And this is all the covers he did. And I'm going to show you some of the actual pages here in a second. There we go. So it's that kind of stuff in there. And, it, like I said, it goes all throughout his career. It goes extensively through Werewolf by Night and some of the other Marvel stuff he did. Man-Thing, Ghost Rider. He was the artist who did the original motorcycle Ghost Rider design with the flaming skull. He originally had thought he was going to get to do the Western version of the Ghost Rider, and was a little bit disappointed because he was like, I don't want to draw motorcycles. But he managed to do quite well on that. So that just shows his professionalism and his quality of work. I gave it a 5-star review, and I recommend it for ages 14 and up. John Norris says, I didn't know that Mike Ploog worked on Disney's Black Cauldron, although that doesn't surprise me. An underrated film, I think. Yes. I don't know. I don't remember if Black Cauldron was mentioned in this volume, but there's a second volume to the Mike Ploog books. And I have the second volume. I just haven't gotten to it yet. I mean, after all, they are 350 pages long. But when I get, I haven't completely finished reading everything. That's not why I have the bookmark where I have it. But when I get to it, if I find the mention of the Black Cauldron in there, I will certainly come back to that and talk about that a little bit there, John. So, certainly Black Cauldron was a good movie too, as well for Disney. Let's see what else we have this week. Back issue 120. Published is $9.95. I think it was 80 or 100 pages. Publisher is Tomorrow's Publishing. Writers are various and artists are various because it's multiple articles and interviews and with creators who worked on different things. And this thematic structure is here. The theme of this particular issue is Heroes of Tomorrow. As you can see, the Legion of Superheroes cover by Steve Lytle is on the cover. And there's a lot of Legion of Superheroes stuff in this issue. I'm them very interesting and insightful to read because I'm not a Legion fan particularly, but I learned quite a little bit about why it was rebooted from pre-crisis to reboot to 3-boot to reboot to reboot and what was going on behind the scenes a little bit with that. And it was like, oh, okay, that explains why this happened and that explains why that happened. And when you read about a little bit of the history of what was going on in the offices and the editorial purviews, you understand why decisions were made the way they were in retrospect, even if you don't agree with them. So I find that interesting. And they also had the Sonic Disruptors, which was a mini-series written by Mike Barron back in the 80s as a mini-series that was never completed due to some sort of political stuff going on in the offices. It says Stark Slayer for some reason, but it's supposed to be Star Slayer. That's Mike Grell's creator-owned work that was originally, I want to say it was with First Comics originally, and then it went and was reprinted by the Valiant imprint for creator-owned for a while, and then reprinted some more. But that was an interesting storyline as well. So I just, another overall solid issue. Recommended for ages 14 and up. 4 out of 5 stars. There's also Manhunter 2070, which is not the Manhunter of Paul Kirk, but a different Manhunter. And there was articles on John Byrne's era of Space 1999 as well. Our next book is Backtrack number 3, $3.99 from Oni Press. This came out just this week. The back issue was last week's stuff, but this is from this week. Publishers Only Press. Writers Brian Joines. The The artist is Jake Elphick, and the colorist is Doug Garbach. The genre is time travel action adventure, and what it's about is the next stage of the time travel race is on, and the racers are in the thick of it as they find themselves trying to pass through the course before a mass earthquake that takes out millions of people begins, and they are among the casualties. And this issue's cliffhanger is a doozy, recommended for ages 16 and up. Let's go ahead and take a look at the art. This is their sort of the third page of the story. They gotten into the safe zone, and the guy that's got the gun, that's got his hands up, don't shoot type thing, has been there, done that, has been in this race before, and has survived it. And he tricked the other guy in the last stage, and he almost died in that last stage. So he's going to shoot him. And so he goes ahead and tries to shoot the guy, and nothing happens. I mean, you see the bang, but nobody can die in the safe zone, supposedly. And there's other characterizations going on as to the personal backstories and why they're in it, why they're in the race, why they're doing what they're doing. And the lead driver, the female driver, that is the lead one, goes back and pulls the guy that's got the gun out before he dies in the next stage of the race. And the cliffhanger is they run out of time and don't get to the safe zone before the earthquake starts. And they're really up close to it, but whether or not they're going to actually make it to the zone in the next issue, we don't know yet. That's the cliffhanger, though. It's a cool thing, though. But let's see if we got some more art for that one. Nope, we don't. So we'll just go on to the next one, which is the Black Science Volume 1, How to Fall Forever, $9.99. I promised Santos Rodriguez that I would get this started, so... publisher is Image Comics. The writer is Rick Remender. Artist is Matteo Scalera. Painted color art by Dean White. The genre is science fiction. What it's about. Grant McKay, the leader of the anarchistic League of Scientists, has achieved the impossible. He has deciphered black science, which is some sort of means to allow him to punch holes in the different realities and dimensions with his device called the Pillar. But something goes wrong, and now he and his team are lost, racing through the boundless expanses of the Eververse, living ghosts shipwrecked in an infinite ocean of alternate alien worlds. The only way to move is forward, but how far are they willing to go to get home again? It's a mature reader's book. It's got a lot of swearing. It's got a lot of mature themes and relationships. Basically, Grant has his kids with him who are teenagers. His wife is back on the regular dimension of Earth. He's with his scientific lab partner or whatever, and they're having an affair, and now they're stuck with the kids, and it's quite interesting. But it's definitely for ages 17 and up. Rated 4 out of 5 stars. And here's some of the artwork. And they're in their environmental protection suits. And they're being chased by these critters on these land moray eels that are really cool colored. And they get to a cliff, and they have to jump off the cliff. And as you can see, there's this huge ocean with these huge, all these lands are on the backs of turtles, with these ginormous turtles with a pyramid on top of the thing. So it's quite the interesting dimensional travel and stuff like that. And so if you're into kind of that craziness there, it might be for you. I can tell you right now, however, for me, and this is going to probably come up as I go through each one of the books, the characters are not necessarily the most likable characters. And as I'm reading this, I'm starting to finally realize that the reason I was never able to finish this series before was because the characters are so reprehensible in some of their actions and behaviors that you just kind of like don't want to root for them. It's kind of like, how do I put this? Sliders meets Lost in Space, and they're all Dr. Smith. That's the best way I can put it. So I hope that makes sense to people. But it's still, it's an interesting story, and it's not. There's nothing wrong with it as far as if you like dark, kind of, I don't know, dickish asshole characters facing insurmountable odds and death-defying feats. It's cool. So let's see what else we got this week. Yes. Mm-hmm. Our next book is Far Sector number 6, $3.99. Publisher is DC Comics. That came out this week. The writer is Nora K. Jemisin, or N.K. Jemisin, and the artist is Jamal Campbell. The genre is SF, science fiction superhero. We're at the halfway point of this series, and it's quite the story so far, as Jemisin keeps weaving a political intrigue with quirky humor and philosophical characterization. Sojourner Joe Moline is pursued by the counselor Marth in courtship. This is the same counselor who last issue just ordered law enforcement to shoot on protesters. Maybe people who are worrying are in this protester thing in real life should check this series out, because I think Jemisin was right on the nail with a lot of what's going on and getting your pulse on the country. But anyway, awkward much? Only this Marth is off the emotional inhibitors, and he understands his error, and he's resigning his post, and he's trying to make amends for his grievous mistake in judgment. So there's the beginnings of some sort of relationship that are forming. And then Joe, our Green Lantern, is called in to check on something by another counselor, only to be attacked by a seemingly dead race, the Cloud, Catocracy. Rating is 5 stars. I didn't put any artwork up, I don't think, but we'll see. No, I did not. The only thing I can otherwise show with Far Sector this week is the variant cover by Sanford. It's a cool cover, and normally I don't purchase variant covers in addition or instead of the primary cover, but it just so happens that Sanford is an acquaintance of mine and a fellow artist from the local Columbia, South Carolina area. And I don't always buy Sanford stuff, but this was I liked the particular piece, and even though I'd already pre-ordered the regular cover, I went ahead to just get this cover to support my fellow artist. And yes, it coincidentally, Sanford is black, but I don't think that makes much of an issue, or a difference. But yes, again, solidarity and support Black community in that way as well. Again, this was released yesterday. So if you didn't like the first cover, which I'll show you in a second here again, that's the first cover. That's the regular cover. If you like that cover better, you might want to seek that out and purchase it, because it is a variant. You might want to let your retailer know if they've got them to put it aside for you. Now we're going to go into this week's crowdfund book of the week, so to speak. We've talked about this book before. I pre-ordered it through, I believe it was Kickstarter, and I got it last week right after the show, and it is Nocturnal Commissions. This is what I got in a nice UPS box with a little sticker that says the No Bodies on it. And if you remember the zombie character in the story, he was part of a rock band called the No Bodies, if I remember correctly. So we'll open this box up real quick. And as you can see, he's got the nice thick bubble wrap there. I got 12 copies of this particular book. I'm going to pull one out. Each one of them is signed by the writer, Jason McNamara, on the front. And they have a special postcard in the back with it of a mermaid. And yes, she is Nicholas J. Bird. Don't look, Ethel! If you don't know what I'm referring to there. There was also a group of stickers that came in with my order. Do it that way. There you go. You see different directions of different stickers in there. It's kind of cool. And let's see if I can find. There we go. On the back of the card, the artist, Greg Hinkle, signed all the cards instead of the comic. So we'll go ahead and take a quick open up of the book. Very strong production. Very nice glossy thick cover, UV coating. The pages are actually a little bit thicker, better quality than a lot of print production that you'll find in comic book shops. Higher grade stock paper. Very nicely done. And we'll take a quick look again at some of the artwork in here. Sorry about the reflection from the light. If you remember, they were in a submarine and they turned into werewolf. One of the pilots of the submarine turned into a werewolf and killed everybody inside. A little bit more of the back history of the zombie guy when he was a rock star before he became undead. And they show a little bit of that past there later on in the story. And after they defeated the enemy, there's Zombie taking all the destroyed werewolves across the bottom of the ocean back to wherever they're going to meet for headquarters. Very cool artwork, very cool concept. We put a client list of people who ordered it, who backed the Kickstarter on there. And there's some nice pinups in the back as well. Some more of the people that are back in the book. Justin Greenwood and Jim Mahfood artwork in there as well. And there I am as a media partner on the back of the book. And thank you, Jason, for mentioning me. I appreciate that. So hopefully people will, who have bought the book, will go ahead and come watch the show. And that kind of brings us to this week's prize giveaway. Now, I had said before the show for people to go ahead and register before the show with the password, but nobody did. So I don't know what it is about Facebook. I guess Facebook just doesn't let people know that I'm doing things. But just give me a moment. What you'll need to do is you'll have to email me at the address you see on the screen. And the earlier passcode word was fussy because what's all the fuss, type thing. But I'm not going to use that password now because nobody emailed me before. Okay. So what I will do instead is the password will be let's see, let's give a password. VAMP, VAMP. So, we'll just put that up here real quick. And there we go. You can win a copy of this book, which will be autographed by both Jason on the front cover, and you'll get the postcard signed by Greg Hinkle, the artist, as well. I got a few of those I'm going to give away, probably 4 for starters that way. Plus, I'm going to give away a special package deal. Those of you who may remember a few months ago, I promoted a series called Kid Nefarious, which is by, it's not by Armand and Mark Andrew Smith, but it's one of the characters created from Gladstone School of World Conquerors. By those two gentlemen. It was, I don't know exactly because I haven't got the book right with me, but I'm going to give that book, 1 copy of that, 1 copy of Nocturnal Commissions, and a 1998 edition of Wonderland #1 from Arrow Comics, which I inked. So you'll get 3 books. And that one will be next week, I guess, because I've only got 3 people watching. So what we'll do is next week we'll do that and have a 3 package deal, 3 book deal. And what you'll have to do there, I'll go ahead and put the directions on Facebook. And when I announce the next week's episode, I'll put it on YouTube as well on how to enter that. Okay. Mm-hmm. So again, if you want a chance to win Nocturnal's commission by emailing VAMP to email across the screen, go ahead and do that. Okay, next book that we have for review tonight is Nocturnal Commissions, of course. And, I gave it a 4 stars. I showed you a little bit of the book. It is for 16 and up. It is kind of for mature readers, and it is $4.99 if you wanted to buy it in print, I guess, from Jason at Polite Strangers LLC, which you can find Jason on Facebook and Polite Strangers on Facebook. And let's see what else we got. Ragnarok, The Breaking of Helheim, number 5. The publisher is IDW Publishing. The writer and illustrator is Walt Simonson, with colors by Laura Martin and letters by John Workman. The genre is fantasy, mythological adventure. And what it's about is Thor has entered the realm of Helheim, which is the Goddess of Death's realm to seek audience with the Goddess of Death, Hel. He is led to her by Hel's minions, with a lone wolf guard following behind, unbeknownst to the rest. Thor finds Hel trapped in a magical sphere prison, and the two have a war of words and trickery with one another, as Thor quickly surmises his plans will not be aided by her, but instead she is in league with his enemy Surtur. The only way to achieve his goal now is to break the entire Deadlands before freeing her from her prison, and the chase is on as he flees from her. The ages, recommended for ages 16 up, and rating is 4 out of 5 stars. And here's some of the art. I really love the giant crow, giant raven that he meets in Hel. Mm-hmm. He flies this giant raven to wherever he needs to get going, and there's the wolf guard character that's following from behind. I'm going to try and get that page from Walt. I just love that page. Let's see what else we got here with this one. If anything, nope. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, I really do like that book, and I enjoyed that so much. That is issue number 5. There's one more issue of that particular story arc to go, so it's going to be real interesting to see where Walt takes the series before he takes another break for a little while to prepare for the next arc. Our next product is Justice League Dark Apocalypse War DVD. It is a rated R movie, and what it's about is the Justice League plan on a strategic attack on Apocalypse, but Darkseid already knows of their plans because he has a sleeper agent within the Justice League that doesn't know he's a sleeper agent. I'm not going to say who or why. But he destroys the League, takes over the Earth, leaving a scant few members surviving from the Titans and the villains of the Suicide Squad left on Earth to team up with John Constantine to try the attack again, and this time finish the villain once and for all. I didn't read the comics that the story is based on, but the story was okay in some places, not very well thought out in others. Basically a rather average movie. I don't want to give too much of the story away. It's okay. I didn't mind it. I got it for like $5. So, for a $5 investment for a DVD, a lot of these are usually 15 to 20. I don't know if I'd invest that much, but if you can get it for $5, it's worth it, So you might want to wait a little while, but if you can find it for, 10 or under, go ahead and give it a shot. That's what I can say for that. Again, if you want to, I'm going to keep running nocturnal commissions by emailing Vamp to the email across the screen for a little bit longer. Let's see what else we've got here. There was something else that was supposed to come up this week that we were going to talk about. Yes. That's what it was. Okay. Milton Grebe. Most of you guys may not know who that is. Milton is the gentleman who used to be he founded Capital City Comics Distribution in the 80s. And he's the guy who came up with Advanced Comics Catalog, which is basically Capital's version of what Diamond's Previews was back in the late 80s, early 90s. And he did an opinion column on ICV2, which is his website, talking about the evolution of distribution in the market today and where we should be going, basically. So we're going to take a quick look at that. And what he says is, the world according to Grebe, a new model for taking advance orders instead of monthly catalogs. This was from a week ago, May 28th. Earlier this month, I wrote a column about the origins of distributor-produced advance order catalogs for consumers and why their time was past. And there's a link to that, The World According to Greek, Origins of Advance Order Catalogs and Why They Should Die. The format has been around since 1988 and has long since outlived its usefulness, especially in the COVID-19 era when supply chains are disrupted, schedules are in disarray, and the whole business needs maximum flexibility to be able to react to rapidly shifting conditions. I'd like to suggest a new model for taking advance orders on geek culture products such as games, comics, and merchandise. The ordering system should allow retailers to begin taking orders from their customers as soon as the basic information about the product is known. For everything except periodical comics, Amazon and other online retailers are listing their titles months before comics and game stores have the opportunity to begin taking orders using one of the distributor-produced advanced order catalogs, whether it's Previews, Game Trade Magazine, or Meeple Monthly. This cedes the majority of the selling time on new graphic novels, which is the largest and growing part of comics business, on games and other merchandise to online retailers, and leaving the brick and mortar retailers using a distributor catalog and their customers at a significant disadvantage. Even for periodicals, a longer amount of time to take orders is unlikely to produce lower sales. That's not an unreasonable statement to make. The thing is that Milton, like most people, think that everybody is on the internet. And as someone who spent a good 15 years out in the desert in the 90s and early 2000s, and someone before that who lived up in rural Michigan, like Ted Davies lives in Tawas, Michigan, he can tell you Oscoda is even smaller, and I lived above that in Greenbush. There's nothing up there. The internet is not necessarily reliable to go get the source hearing about materials. The other thing is, a lot of this material, if you'll pardon me, it's not so much that brick and mortar stores are getting the information late and the consumers therefore are getting it late. What it is that there's so much content out there that you can lose the information amongst the noise, if you will. And we become so reliant on so-called comics news sources like Comic Book Resources and Bleeding Cool, and they are basically monetarily dictated to by Diamond, by the big companies, as to what really gets covered. So 90% of the stuff never even gets talked about anyway. So I'm not so sure that you don't need a catalog. I think we do need catalogs, but I think catalogs are for the materials that aren't going to be branded out publicly the same way, which is why we have to pay attention to Kickstarter and Indiegogo and Patreon and Indie Planet and Lulu and all these other platforms now that cover much larger amounts of content than what Diamond offers as a distributorship. I think we need to have some sort of a return to an embrace of that and have regional distribution reestablished for retailers, for brick and mortar stores, and teach them a different culture than what they've been used to for the last 25 years in that respect. But let's go ahead and go continue with Milton's column. He says, the ordering system should allow retailers to place their orders at the last possible minute to have their quantities guaranteed. There are already numerous ordering cycles in place, making the idea that there's some magical monthly order due date that works for every product coming out 2 months later a myth. And that's true. There's a lot of pre-orders that are 6 months in advance. There's a lot of orders that set it up so that you see it, that your book might appear in bookstores or other retail outlets before comic shops. You'll see that in the catalogs. So yeah, that's there, and he's absolutely right about that. And yes, so there are ways to get around that structure, or not get around it, but to adapt with that structure and make multiple ordering platforms and ordering so that people can get it to the closest, for not just the retailers, so that they can get their orders guaranteed for their stores, but get it guaranteed for publishers so that we know what we're doing by the time we go to the publisher, so we know what we're ordering to be printed to the printers. So it works on multiple levels in that respect. You know, he goes on, products that are produced in Asia or with other complex manufacturing processes can have longer lead times. Standard periodical comics can set their print runs less than a month before they street. Technically, he's correct about that, but most of them are doing it 6 weeks out because of a number of reasons. I understand what he's saying. They can do it in 3, not 6, pretty easily. So every week there are other order due dates for products coming out anytime from a few weeks out to several months later. So why not just have a weekly cycle of order due dates for all products with guaranteed quantity cutoffs that week? That actually makes sense. That's an intelligent, well thought question. That would not be a bad idea at all. I'm good with that. Consumers must be able to order from stores using an online tool. Given that a few stores use a single supplier, well, he's wrong about that. Most of the comic shops I know use single suppliers, as far as if all they do is comics and a little bit of toys, they get it strictly from Diamond. But I know what he's saying, because there's other people. If you're smart, you use more than one supplier of distribution. Anyway, the online tool for retailers to collect online orders is going to have to come from some sort of point of service system specific to geek businesses such as a Comic Hub, Crystal Commerce, or Binder POS. Or a distributor is going to have to build one that allows stores to add products from other suppliers, so that a single tool can be used for more complete products across products and lines across categories. This advanced order tool should accommodate automated suggestions for the upsell marketing based on creator property, series, product category, release date, etc. Various other key criteria from which consumers can make a purchasing decision. That's exactly what the guy in Australia was trying to do 3 months ago, that all the retailers threw a shit fit about and said, no, we don't want it. What he just told you, and this is a guy who's been in the business as he was number 2 distributor behind, or 1A distributor behind Diamond back in the 80s and 90s. He's been around since, I want to say 78 or 79 in the business. He knows what he's talking about. And he's telling you need this, retailers. And yet you got Brian Hibbs and Joe Field and Phil Boyle and Chuck Rosansky and all these big headshot, big name, big wigs in the retail community saying, no. So, whether or not I'm more apt to side with Milton on this one myself, but we already have seen that there's going to be resistance to that. The time between orders, when orders are due to stores and when orders are due to distributors, and when distributors place orders. Okay, what he's basically saying is shorten the time between processing orders from retailer to distributor to producer of goods. is what he's saying there. And the idea that it takes a long time to process orders came from a period when human beings had to enter advance orders from a physical order form into a computer. With consumers and retailers placing their orders electronically, the processing time should be measured in hours rather than weeks or days. And the difference in order due dates between tiers only a day or two. I disagree with that. I'm sorry. I have to disagree with that one, with Milton on that, because I still use the written out one. I still use the physical catalog every month. So I would, it takes me a couple hours to go through it, and then I take it and hand it over to my retailer the next day, and they fill it, they go through it and then put it in the computer. But why don't I do that by myself? Well, the reason I don't do it by myself is because the places where they go to put that in, it's difficult for me to get logged in. And so I know I'm not the only one who's going to have that problem. And when you think of the sheer number of people that are going to be there trying to get in on this stuff, to fill in these orders, the sheer number of retailers, the sheer number of customers, they're going to try and order direct on this platform. That's going to be an interesting dilemma, I think. I think you're going to have a little bit of both physical and the digital. And ultimately, digital will be used. But I think what people need to understand is it needs to go step to step still. So, yes, you can shorten the time, but not maybe as much as Milton's saying. I think it would still be, probably instead of like 2 weeks, maybe a week, maybe half a week to do it. But, it's not something that you can just do lickety split. Like I don't know if he's really suggesting that, but that's what it reads like to me. So, his next thing he says, consumers and retailers should be able to continue to order after a due date for guaranteed quantities, drawing on available to promise inventory, ordered on spec at the retailer or distributor level until it is exhausted. What he's saying is, if you're a publisher or a producer of goods, don't print just to order. Print 15 or 20% above the order. And that's normal thing you should do anyway for multiple reasons. In case there's damaged goods, you have spares to replace them with. In case there's other situations where the demand is higher, you have a sell-through without having to go back to print or back to production. So that's basically what he's saying, that there needs to not be a cutoff date that you can, due date that they can order, and up to a certain point. But the distributor should know what their order is before that and know whether or not they can fulfill that order. So he's right about that. So I'll go along with that one. He says the advantage of such a system would reflect the actual demand, because at all levels, orders will be placed closer to the release. Mismatches between supply and demand in a largely non-returnable supply chain are difficult to overestimate. Every incremental improvement that reduces those mismatches by increasing or eliminating excess inventory, increasing sales or eliminating excess inventory, goes straight to the bottom line. I understand what he's trying to say there. Let me go ahead and show you that again. Again, yes, they're more reflective of actual demand to a point. I'm going to be brutally honest. Too many retailers try to go bare bones, straight sell through with no stock. And they're not necessarily even trying to market the product to the public as a result. So I don't think it would really necessarily be reflective of the actual demand so much as the minimum demand. And by that I mean, let's just say for sake of argument that we had my comic Supreme 6 out there, and local shop ordered 10 copies, and I do a local interview or something, and all of a sudden they have 15 or 16 copies ordered for the store. He's only got 10 and he can't get any more because he's already ordered closer, to the type of the demand. There's not enough overstock. That would be a problem. The only way to generate all that stuff is to be promoting all of our stuff and doing our interviews during the solicitation period, which is really what people should be doing anyway. All too often in our comics news media, we screw it up by doing the interviews with the creators when the books have come out and are on the shelf. It needs to happen when the books are being solicited. That way, the buzz is there, the customers know about it, and they'll go tell the retailer to order it. But we don't all too often we don't do that, unfortunately. So he's not entirely wrong or anything like that. It's a little more nuanced than that. I think he's oversimplifying it just a little bit. His next statement is brick and mortar retailers will be able to compete more effectively with online retailers, taking orders for a longer period of time before release with more flexibility. First off, you got to have brick and mortar retailers have access to the content. As I've said in previous episodes of the program, a good 85 to 95% of the product isn't even available to brick and mortar stores directly, certainly not through Diamond. So unless that retailer is going to go through other channels and seek it out and actively promote that content, they're not going to carry it anyway. So, and the only way to be really competitive with online retailing is to have that content and have it, affordably and either at the same time or before. So that's a little bit more complex again than what he's talking about. Not that his plan wouldn't help in these aspects, but again, there's more to it than that. His next point of that is the online tool will allow for more efficient cross-selling. A print catalog is very limited in how it groups or presents related products, while an online catalog can be endlessly flexible. Yes and no. I know what he's trying to get at there. I don't know. Eliminating the catalogs will wipe out huge amounts of waste in prepping pages for publication, printing, shipping, handling, and other costs. And let's face it, for most purchasers are totally uninterested in the majority of the products in that catalog, which is another form of waste. The thing is, whether or not they're interested or not, the reason they're disinterested is because we haven't allowed them to learn to be fans of the comic book medium and be interested to at least discover and find what is there. We've culturally brainwashed them to be brand followers, whether it's Marvel, whether it's DC, whether it's Star Wars, whether it's this creator or that creator. And in order to make the catalog effective, you have to train your customer to have a little more open-mindedness about what they're looking for. And a lot of retailers don't want to do that because they don't have the open-mindedness themselves. They're fans of what they're fans of, and that's what they promote in their stores. And it's kind of like this broken-mindedness, I hate to say, but it creates an insular, limited purview. And so it's not so much that the catalog is a waste. it's just not being used in the capacity it was intended for. And we need to teach both retailers and consumers how to use the catalog properly, in my opinion. As far as the printing costs and the cost of shipping it and everything, that's the reason it's a waste is because we haven't taught the people how to use it properly. If we teach them how to use it properly, I think a lot of people will find that the investment of the $3.99 or whatever it is for the print book, it's $4 a book for the catalog, isn't that bad of an investment. I know since I spend as much money as I do buying back stock, or not back stock, but stuff from the back of the catalog, I certainly make, if I didn't have that, I would not know about these books. Because I'm sorry, they don't show them on the online website the same way that they do in the catalog. It's not easy to find them in the stuff that I found. In fact, my local comic shop and I have been emailing back and forth about updating my backlist of trade paperbacks and hardcovers I ordered over the last 6 months. They're trying to make sure what they can get from Diamond and what's out of stock and everything. And there was like 2 books I didn't remember I'd ordered, and I couldn't find them in the catalog, and they couldn't find them in online, and it took us 3 days to find them. So again, it's this weird juxtaposition. But if we can find, as long as you can build a system, I think both is the overall most beneficial. For retailers and distributors, a weekly cycle allows for more efficient use of personnel than a monthly one. The amount of work each week would vary less. Instead of a big monthly catalog, distributors would focus on quickly adding new products from the upcoming product database for consumer and retailer use. And instead of them trying to collect orders from that big monthly catalog once a month, each week the retailer and distributor could work on orders for the products due that week. And again, he concludes with, I developed the system in use today, and now it's time to start over in a new way. And yes, he did develop it. And so, it's not that he is, he knows what he's talking about for the most part. And it is a direction that we need to lean towards, but I don't think we're fully there for full immersion into the internet for everybody just yet. I just don't. We have too much people who assume that everybody is on the internet, everybody has everything computerized, and I'm sorry, but many of us are still 10 to 15 years behind modern technology in this country. And what you're doing is you're basically cutting them out of and that's cutting potential sales. So I just don't think that's the full answer right now. Maybe in another 5 or 10 years, depends on how fast the technology gets caught up and how fast affordable it becomes for the poorest of us, not the richest, the poorest. And who knows if we'll even be here with all the stuff that's going on in the world these days. We'll be here in that time. I hope we will, but we'll see. But that's everything on that particular article. I thought it was interesting to share. Hope you guys found that interesting as well. I was going to conclude a little bit more, speaking of previews from the catalog. I don't know where I put it, though. I thought it was right by my station, and it doesn't seem to be here. So what I'm going to do real quick is see if it's where I think it is. I will be right back. It was. Apologies for the delay, folks. And this was this month's previews. And in the back of the catalog, I don't know exactly where I left off, but I know we weren't past Marvel and we were past Boom. Past that, past Action Lab. There wasn't a whole lot this month compared to what I normally get. If you didn't get Molly Danger when it first came out, it's being re-released. It's a 9x12 hardcover with 48 pages for $20, $19.95, by Jamal Igle and Juan Castro. As far as I know, that is the same book as what I have already. Looks like it, but let's see if I can get that. There you go, Molly Danger, Volume 1, Book 1. And that is on page 260 of the catalog. I'm getting Disaster Inc. from Aftershock. I had told you I might get Dead Day because we did reviews of that either last week or the week before. I decided I'm canceling that one because number one was really a disappointment, unfortunately. And I just not interested in any further consideration of the book. I'm sorry. It was just that much of a disappointment to me. That happens sometimes, unfortunately. Also from Aftershock is Join the Future number 4. I'll be getting that. So you'll see a review of that sometime in August, hopefully. Let's see. And yes, Peter Samedi, buddy, there's your review. There's brand new catalog, and there's the stuff listed for Alterna Comics. So you might want to get with them and tell them that those are not coming in from what Peter just told me. So again, you're going to want to go to alternacomics.com and or go to Alterna Comics on Facebook, and it'll tell you where to go to get your orders. There's a lot of interesting things here and there. I'm getting the Osiris Path from Behemoth Comics. That would be 3 of 3. Hopefully 1 and 2. I ordered them. They haven't come yet. So it's probably just the delays from the COVID-19 situation, I presume. So I'll be looking forward to seeing those soon. I'm not going to... I'm not going to even bother showing it. There's a kind of a rude image, but Boundless Comics of a... It's not rude. I don't know. I just kind of less than tasteful, in my opinion. But I'm not going to share it. Doesn't need to be shared. Let's see what else is there. From Fantico Enterprises, I'm getting Trog. Whoops. Let's see if we can get that in there. Trog one shot. Doesn't want to show. There we go. Trog one shot from Richard Bonk. Richard's a friend of mine on Facebook, so I figured I'd go ahead and give it a shot. And that is a $4.99 book for 32 pages. It's Cannibal, Cro-Magnons, Dinosaurs, and Jungle Girls. We'll see. Uh, from Fantagraphics, I'm getting Clover, which will be shipping in August 2020. And let's see if I can read that out there for you. It's a genetically modified human organism type story, half man, half goat, and a guy's named Tuck, and it's about, him having fever dreams and what's going on with people trying to kill him and stuff like that, I'm pretty sure. So I'll be interested in seeing what that turns out to be. Let's see. There's The Big Tease by Bruce Timm from Plus Publications. That's an art book by Bruce Timm of Batman, the animated series fame, but it's his Bad Girls type risque illustration work. So if that's not your thing, this is not your thing. But it's elegant drawings of women basically over the past 30 years. So I just happen to think he's an excellent illustrator for that. So, and he's usually pretty tasteful, even with some of the risque stuff he does. So I'll give it a shot. Heavy Metal 300 from Heavy Metal Magazine comes out in August, and I'll be getting 2 covers. I'll be getting the Ian Anicello cover rather, and a blank cover. The Ian Anicello cover is the one that has Tarja, or the one on with the girl there in black warrior chick. That if you've seen the movie, you know who that character is. But I'm getting one of those covers and one of a blank cover to do a sketch of. So I'll get that. Let's see. I'm hoping to do maybe get a hold of Tim Seeley or Joseph Village and have them come on board and talk about heavy metal in a future episode as well. We'll see. So there are different things here and there. Again, we're in the H's now. We're down to N's. I got a I don't know if I got the Spoon T-shirt or the classic Tick T-shirt, but I'm getting one of them. I ordered that just so I have another shirt to wear beside another comic shirt to wear. Pardon me. From Oni Press, I've talked about this before. Titan. This is the new full length edition for $19.99. I have the 4 or 5 mini comics that from the original printings as a collection, but I'm getting the trade as well, and it'll be kind of a 1-2 color thing, black and white with 1 color type stuff there. Looks like that. It's a good science fiction story. There's probably a few more other pieces in here, but that's again, always there's always stuff to find in previews if you're looking. So it was kind of like a small. It wasn't really a small month for me. If I actually go through all this and run it all down, it's probably a good $300 or $400 for the month. But yeah, because I usually go between 3 and 5 a month. But still, that's the way it is. So earlier in the show, I mentioned that I was going to do next week a 3 package deal with the Nocturnal Commissions Kid Nefarious and Wonderland comics. The Nocturnals will come autographed by Jason McNamara with the postcard signed by Greg Hinkle. Kid Nefarious is by Schroet, Weldon, Avalis, and Brousseau, actually. It's based on the characters owned by Mark Andrew Smith and Armand Villevert. You'll get this, and you will get Wonderland #1 from 1998, which I inked, and I'll have it signed across the front for you. And there'll probably be a certificate of authenticity on the back as well. So you'll get those 3 items. I don't know if I'll have a chance to get the certificate of authenticity. I'll have to ask if I can get a notary to sign it or not. But I'll try to get it notarized for you and everything like it's supposed to be. Hopefully that won't cost too much. But anyway, you'll get all 3 of these next week as a prize package that I'll have. Enter that and the passcode for next week's show. Is let's make it triple play. Okay, so if you want to get a chance to win those 3 books for you next week, passcode is triple play. You email it to the address you see on the screen, quoththeravenlbr72@gmail.com. Okay? If you just want to get just the Nocturnal commissions one, you can email to the same address. The passcode is VAMP, VAMP. Next week, entries will be counted, and I'll put them on the spinner, and we'll see who wins what. Okay? And there might be an extra surprise in there as well. We'll see. Depends on how much time I've got this week to set up. And that pretty much closes our show for the night. I want to thank you all for watching. As always, in accordance with our regular COPPA regulations, the episode was intended for 16 and up. We try to be kid friendly sometimes, but the context of the episode really is to address adults and their to be researched as consumers in service of their youth. And the show is rated TV 16 and up. If you want to reach me otherwise, you can reach me on Facebook at lewis.brightraven, DeviantArt at deviantart.com/brightraven, here at YouTube at Quoth the Raven, Lewis Brightraven. Gmail is quoththeravenlbr72@gmail.com, and if you can't reach me via Gmail, you can always try lewisbrightraven@yahoo.com. The podcast is usually on Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so with that, I will give you guys bid you a fond farewell for the week. Stay safe out there and respect one another. Take care of each other. And we'll see you next week.